Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and welcome to the finals for our third season of the subscriber game tournament, as we have Will Be D taking on Trivenicus. Now the finals will be a best out of 3 format, where the first 2 battles will be an alternating siege battle, but unlike most of the sieges we had so far in this season and previous seasons, this will be done in a Nanman settlement. So there's actually no victory points, there's no walls, there are still some towers, and there's a capture point that can affect morale. But this hopefully will bring some new and interesting gameplay mechanics to the game, as they will be both doing battle at Jianning's capital of Weixian, and it's a pretty interesting map with some vertical stretches of land going towards the city center, some drawbridges, interesting tower layout on the inside, and we'll see how the players adjust. But there's also going to be a pig ban phase, which is what we will cover first. Now, since Will Be D is the higher seed from our round of 8 rankings, he will actually be picking first. He also had the cleaner semifinal 2-0ing his opponent, Sleeping Phoenix. So this is why he's going to be able to pick sides, and he picked attacking side, which means he also gets first pick and ban. And he starts things off with a ban of Yuan Shao, followed by Cao Ren, Mu Lu, Pei Yuan Shao, Huang Fusong, and Xu Huang. So some clear bans from the defensive side. Probably one of the strongest generals in the game in Xu Huang. Cao Ren being banned out to prevent infinite healing, especially for the attacking side. Although without walls, I actually don't know if this is going to be too different from an open field fight. Of course, the defense does get their towers, but they also get slightly less funding. There's only a 1,500 funding gap on these maps without walls, so it's only a 10% difference. Not as big as the 3,000 on a typical siege battle, so it's going to be a lot closer in terms of power levels between the two players. And aside from that, Pei Yuan Shao is banned by Trivenicus because he's the only general that's not a strategist that comes with Wisdom of the River, which is a very powerful debuff against enemy generals as well as units. And then for Will Be D, he's banning out high morale characters, whether that's Distant Courage from Yuan Shao or Unbreakable Defender of Empire from Huang Fusong, and of course the elephants from Mu Lu. Then for the first picks, Will Be D is going to go with Wen Chou, and in response, Trivenicus is going with Gong Du. So Wen Chou here, with the roar ability combined with the bans we see, we might be getting a combination roar strategy going on from Will Be D. Now Gong Du could bring a variety of units, definitely a strong general in his own right, very good weapon. We'll see how it's being used. I think his killing ground ability needs them to be the weaker side, so with the side being less funded, they're going to be starting out the battle as the weaker side, and that might come in handy. Then for the next round of bans, Trivenicus starts things off with Sun Ce, identifying potential roar strategies or morale hitting strategies with combinations. Sun Ce and Wen Chou will be quite scary, -80. And if you add in a Roar of the Beast somewhere, you're looking at essentially a Zhang Fei Roar that you can use twice. And then in response, Will Be D is banning out Yan Bai Hu, so no sneaking on this map and no need to bring any vision. And the picks, starting with Trivenicus, is going to be Zhang Liao, another defensive play, starting out as the weaker side on a defensive siege with less funding. He does bring a very powerful passive ability for the troops, extra attack rate, extra melee evasion, as well as cause scare. And in response, we have a Zhang Bao sighting. So Zhang Bao is unbreakable himself, I believe, and he can bring Yao Guai Hunters, which is a very nice harassment unit that can stay stock and snipe, and they can whittle down enemy infantry inside settlements. Although this one, without walls, like I said, is more like an open field than a traditional siege, so I'm not sure how much time poison units have in terms of whittling out enemy units, because they can easily come out and fight with the tower as support. They don't have to sit behind a wall. Now the last round of bans here, we have a ban by Will Be D of Tai Shi Ci, worried about more poison, Venomous Shot, Hail of Arrows, and some good units for guard passive of the generals. And we have a ban of Wu Tu Gu, another pretty powerful Nanman general here, Javelin Spear Guard being the obvious target ban here on the general. And lastly, both players get one hidden pick, and Will Be Deed is going to go with Sima Ai. This is a pretty good choice given that he is unbreakable, high health commander or champion, I'm sorry. And I think he might be the only champion who is actually unbreakable in the game, and being unbreakable has tremendous value. And lastly, on Trivenicus' side, we have Lu Bu being picked. All around strong character, slip through the bands, unbreakable, good dragon gaze to buy a bit of time, perhaps for his defensive side to hold in some key locations, good smash abilities as well, just a little bit less health compared to a champion like Sima Ai. But good rounded comps on both sides, excited to see what units they're going to bring with these, as we had some surprises in the semifinal rounds from both of these players who brought more untraditional picks on generals, just to catch their opponent off guard. And looking at the draft of units, starting with Will Be Deed on the green side, on attack, he will have 3 units of the Northern Veteran Infantry. They have turtle formation. They're probably there to tank the arrow towers. And then we have 1 strong Protector of Heaven, some of those Exemplar of Dalt, which have been a very good infantry for Will Be Deed in the semifinal round. 1 poison using Yaogui Hunter, a Jazz Rider, which is an interesting unit. I guess they can potentially run into the settlement and capture some points. They have decent missile resistance, being a melee cav, high per unit health given that they have less units. The health pool is reduced, but I don't think it's reduced by the same ratio, so they have higher health per model, and they're probably good running around even with towers on the inside of these settlements, and perhaps capture the captured point, lower the enemy morale, and so forth. And lastly, we have 2 infantry of Jing. So they have Turtle, another unit that could be used to push into the settlement. And in response, Trivenicus brought 2 crossbow units in the Watcher of Peace, which is an excellent crossbow unit as they do have a shield to trade against any potential range coming from Will Be Deed's side, who actually tend to bring a couple crossbow unit, but given his general choices here, he can't actually recruit them. But obviously you have that 3rd blind pig general, so he could have been anyone, and definitely could have brought maybe a commander to bring a couple crossbows. So a preemptive choice by Trivenicus. Still going to be great on defense. They have really good range damage, and they can be elevated on this type of map where you sort of have a mountain in the middle. 2 Guardian of the Land, solid frontline infantry, and then we have Qingzhou units, which is great. Anti-cavalry options. Might not be the best choice in a siege fight, but then again, you don't know if Will Be Deed is going to bring cavalry or not. They're overall still pretty decent, and some cheap cav for Lu Bu to round things out, potentially to just chase down some enemies or help the generals win some fight, chase down the enemy generals, things with speed essentially. So let's see how this is played out on the battlefield, because there's definitely some interesting approaches when you don't have a victory point to guard. The defense can feel free to come out and initiate against the attacking side. Might not be a bad idea. We'll see how both players treat this map, because there is definitely a lot of different options. Also a lot of different sides that's completely sealed away. As you can see, the gates don't really open up everywhere. And we'll take a moment to look at the map before we jump into the actual deployment and the battle. Alrighty, hop into our map here. Very foggy for the moment. The weather is set to fog on purpose. And you can see in the middle of the map, we have our capture point. I believe it does provide 10-point morale boost to the defensive side as long as they stay inside the settlement. And at each of these gates, we have a couple towers shooting out. All of these are elevated, going up a hill. And there are some interior towers as well. Not too many, but they do overlap quite well. On the path towards the center, there are these nice drawbridges, different elevations. So if you want to defend the center, definitely have that option, and create some interesting choke point opportunities for the army if you want to run range comps. But of course, you have to contend with enemy generals as well. But it seems like we have a pretty aggressive deployment by Will Be Deed towards these 2 towers, and it has been responded by Trivenicus here with his units. Everyone's piled in. The only thing that's kind of strange is we have this 1 Jazz Rider out to the side. Maybe this unit will loop around and sneak in from the back and go capture this unintended capture point. It's still a pretty costly journey because you paid for the unit. It's not going to participate in the fight. There is that 1,500 price difference, and WoBD didn't bring any fire arrows, so aside from marching in with Turtle, the only way to avoid those towers are basically going to be trying to capture them with the Turtle units, but they seem to be well defended, and let's see how this battle commences. So the poison arrow comes out, hits the cavalry. It's not a big deal. The damage is done per model that's alive, so 22 damage times whatever 30 units here. That's the only amount of damage it'll do. It's not going to do a lot. Against infantry, it's going to be a lot better, and it's kind of forcing a reaction here, which is very normal. I think in this case, the 3 generals, given that they're decently strong, could come out and just try to kill this source. Obviously, not knowing what's in the forest is a little bit scary, but with maybe the cavalry in support, they can just do a little hit and run and fall back to the towers afterwards. Because this poison damage does get annoying when it hits infantry. Hiding the generals, hiding some of the units, not letting them know where the units are. Alright, the generals meet and they back out, going back towards the tower. WoBD's pulling the generals back, but Sma is getting bumped and getting slapped a couple times. The infantry have swarmed. It's not looking bad. Lu Bu obviously could stop this and also slam down. They're not really sticking. You got the roar. Qingzhou units are pretty roar resistant. They can basically still fight for 30 seconds and the roar will expire. We have a flank. They do get on top of the enemy. Having these on the side does not help. It does come down a little bit to the general fight. Trivenicus is doing a pretty good job just slapping the enemy units with the generals. Given that the poison is done, maybe a retreat back to the tower position will be slightly better. Play up the defenses. Ooh, I think Lu Bu got knocked off the horse. Not voluntarily, he actually got dismounted. So they have to fight here now. WoBD has dismounted all 3 generals. Lu Bu does not have a horse to go back to. He bumped into a spear. I don't think he's going to outrun this one. He does run back to his 2 friends who were dismounted to help him because they know they're not getting out. Can they push some units over here? There we go. Here comes the infantry. And here comes the enemy infantry as well. Lu Bu trying to get a little bit of damage down. A slam before he dies? No, nothing. So not much done there. Lost the general pretty cleanly. With his generals dismounted, I think Trivenicus just have to take this fight here. It's 1v3 right now. Can we get another help? Both of these generals are breakable, but there's no stacking abilities. Got some match animations going on. Doing a decent amount back. Zhang Nao's coming here to help. Yeah, the morale wavering. And down he goes. I don't think Zhang Nao can bring this back, especially with his morale level. If we get another roar effect, and the units are still fighting, but those exemplar of Dao should be strong enough. Now I would chase Zhang Nao down and kill him. Zhang Nao has that passive on until he dies. Right now the units are slightly favoring WoBD, so the passive should still be on. That is not the case. Lu Bu's dismounting was very important here. Because after he dismounted, he couldn't get away safely. They overstayed, I think. The goal should have been just get rid of the poison unit and then fall back to the defensive positions and fight in chokes. Because WoBD didn't bring anything with fire, and also, you know, doesn't have much except for the turtle formations. You can fight them around the choke, break up the formations, muck things up. But now these crossbow units can't do too much, and I don't think there's anything left. Sma eventually died, but no big deal. The remaining 2 generals will carry the day. John Ball is turning out to be a very good pick for this. Not only for the poison unit, but the Exemplar doll is really good. John Ball himself, Nature's Ally is really underrated. We get a surrender, makes total sense. I actually think they actually get all wiped there. It's either surrender or they all army lost at the end there. But regardless, a very quick win here for Wolby Deed, taking the win on attack. Kind of drew the defense out with the poison arrows in this nice little area of the forest, forced them into a situation where they overcommitted. Ribu got dismounted, got killed pretty quickly, and then it was sort of a 2v3 general fight that was not winnable, and it ended right there. That's a bit unfortunate, but good win. So looking at the numbers here, not too surprised. The units did decently well. Those Exemplar dolls mentioned, they definitely carried a decent portion of the fight. The Outright Hunter didn't get to do too much. The poison kills will not be counted there. And essentially it did enough to draw out the enemy. And Lu Bu unfortunately got dismounted. That Dazzler Rider, I think it came back into the settlement and then charged out again to join the fight, which is why it got some of the kills. But I don't think it really mattered much. After the general fight swung heavily in Wolby Deed's favor, Trivenicus probably wasn't going to bring this back with Ventral still alive, with at least 2 roars left, I think. Those roar abilities definitely made an impact. It activated the misplaced devotions quite early on most of the Team Troll units, so the time after expire and they dip below again, they're not going to have a bounce back afterwards, which gave an easy path for those Exemplar doll to finish things. Those few spear units, or perhaps it's a turtle formation, maybe it's Protector of Heaven. Actually, it's not Protector of Heaven because that unit was in the back. Someone knocked Lu Bu off his horse, and that really dictated the pacing of the fight, because Wolby Deed has his generals dismounted already. If Lu Bu stayed on, they do a few smashes, they run back into the settlement, reset the defense. This would have been a very different fight. Those crossbow unit would have been more time to shoot at this army, even though I think Wolby Deed's army is actually pretty well equipped to attack into towers. They have very high quality melee infantry, some that can maintain formations, so they wouldn't be bothered by the arrow tower as much. Those 4 cavalry really can't do much to Wolby Deed's army, and eventually I think he probably could have won it either way, but this was definitely faster. Looking forward to both sides switching sides. We're going to have Trivenicus attacking now, a fresh round of pick and bans, and see if he can tie up the series and force a blind pick game 3, tie-break win on the open field, which I don't think we had in any of the past finals, as I think both finals went 2-0 during the siege phase, and we never really got to see an open field tie-break. Perhaps this year is the year. So until then, bye!